Hello and welcome to the Virtual Frontier, the podcast about virtual teams created by a virtual team. I'm Chris and I'm part of the team here at FlashHub. On today's episode, we have Florian Michalik. Florian is the CEO and founder of Team of Talents. Florian is an expert on new work, distant collaboration, and future leadership. So, here is episode 14 of the Virtual Frontier featuring our guest, Florian Michalik.
Hello and welcome everybody to our new podcast episode on Virtual Frontier. Our guest today is Florian. Florian is an expert and evangelist in new work and the training of distributed and remote teams. So welcome very much, Florian. And maybe you want to talk a little bit about your background, from where you're coming and what you're actually doing in this interesting field of new work and virtual teams.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you for having me in your show. Yeah, my name is Florian Michalik, and actually I was stumbling into virtual teams when I began my professional career back in year 2000. Because one of my very first projects I ever had, I was a junior software developer back in the time, was actually a remote project. And this was an interesting constellation because we were in Germany and the developers were in Tunisia in Africa, actually, which is pretty uncommon. And I was not prepared on doing that and was really new to that. And that was the times before we had, for example, Skype. And that was my beginning with remote teams. My home is pretty much the digital economy. So I worked for digital agencies as a manager, as a project manager, and later as a consultant. I worked for large consultancies like Accenture and Sapient, which are very international and obviously have big international teams. There's much of development in India. There are on-site teams all over the world for different client locations. Yeah, and pretty much worked with those teams, with those different locations. And yeah, actually what drives me is by the time I realized when I changed my jobs, for example, that some teams might be very familiar to remote work. It's no topic at all for them. It's like normal business for them to be remote. While for other teams, it's really a topic. It's a challenge. Even someone's working from home for one day, for example, or someone is in a different location and the rest of the team is in a different location. And of course, with outsourcing projects and teams in overseas, and people struggle. And I try to find out what the reason could be for that, and why is that some teams have that advantage and others do not. And I pretty much got addicted to that topic to find that out. And in all literature, I found some hints, but not what is really the secret and actually how you can reproduce it and how you can learn it as a team. And for the last 5 years, I got so addicted that I tried to find my own way and identify the ways of successful remote teams and created a methodology people can learn, and it's called Remote Agile. And this is what I do now with my own business for the last years, teaching companies and individuals how to work remotely efficiently.
Oh, that's interesting. So we are working with FlashHub, and we are as well a completely virtual company and a team with over 150 members. I can understand very well from where you come and what you have experienced might on your way. Would you mind to share like some of your key findings when you researched and got addicted to all this?
Yeah, sure. Happy to do that. So actually, in my point of view, there are 3 layers which are important when it comes to remote teams and remote work. So first of all, it's about task-related processes. So for example, if we talk about software development, it's pretty easy. Most teams today use, for example, Scrum or any other agile methodology, which defines how you actually work together, how you share your tasks, where are the interfaces in your work, and where you work together, and how the workflow of the team is. And having that defined helps a virtual team much in working together. But the second thing is the forgotten one, and it's about what I love to call socio-emotional processes, which is like a nice word for how to team up, how to build relationships and maintain relationships, and how to see each other as human beings and take time to know each other and to group up and to develop team spirit. And I can share a little of mine. I can share a little of my most favorite tricks afterwards. So,
yeah,
but this is the second. This is the second layer, and the third layer is a new kind of leadership, in my opinion. So, the traditional, especially when it's in Western Europe, and maybe especially in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, where people are very control addicted, sometimes micromanaging, and trust is a big topic for us here in Germany, obviously, and we tend to distrust sometimes our teams and people without having any bad intention, but it's like many of us work here in our culture, and this is not really a good thing. And I think you need a type of new leadership. So you have to develop some new leadership skills of work or new work or reinventing organization style. So it's like a mind shift for some of the leaders. But I would love to share some of the tricks. So you asked me for the tricks, and
sure, go for it.
Some of my most favorite things are on that remote socio-emotional processes. And when I talked to very successful remote teams, and when I observed them, I saw all over the place that they do one thing very, very often. And this is having type of rituals. So, for example, of course, they might have daily stand-up meetings, which, of course, have a short and crisp agenda and should not be abused for anything else. But many of them have regular meetings, like a weekly meeting. And in those meetings, they include some rituals like icebreaker sessions at the beginning or check-in rounds. One of my most favorite one is from Automatic. Automatic is the company behind WordPress, and they are 700 people all over the globe and have no office at all. And what they love to do is in their weekly meeting, they have an exercise called Rocks and Roses. And it's about everyone telling one rock. So something what I have struggled with in the last 7 days, maybe some private thing or some work-related thing, something what was challenging for me. And they share a rose, something we are grateful for, something we loved to experience or we liked. And it's really just about telling that. And but it has a huge impact on the bonding of the team and on the team spirits and seeing each other as a human being, and really makes a difference. And this is one thing I observe all over the place in virtual teams, having those rituals.
Yeah, that's really important. I found in my recent experience that in a traditional company, you have those experiences and rituals like happening on a more natural base, let's say it like that. And in virtual teams or in remote teams, you have to organize those human interactions more specific. So it's not just like, let's look when there is happening, because most of the things we do virtually, like meetings and everything, is scheduled. No, but those interesting things about rituals and getting to know each other and have personal talks with peer-to-peer, whatever. So you need to have them out of the schedule, but and getting to know each other and have personal talks with peer-to-peer, whatever. So you need to have them out of the schedule, but you need to schedule them in some way. So this is kind of tricky, and you have to plan for it, but it has to happen as well naturally.
Yeah, that's so true. There's no way to meet someone randomly on the virtual floor because we do not have any virtual floor. So maybe you can use Slack or HitChat as a type of virtual floor, but you're so right. So having that like scheduled and planned. And this is another thing I see, especially when it comes to Western Europe culture, is taking the time to maintain those relationships. So for many of us, it feels like, okay, I have so much work to do, and we all have much work to do. I can't take the time for example, or having a conversation in a virtual coffee meeting. So what some people love to do is having like a virtual water cooler where people meet in like a video meeting once a week for half an hour, for example, and just doing chit chat. And what people don't see is in an actual physical office, we take this time. So we go to the water cooler, we go to the coffee kitchen, we meet on the floor, on the hallway, and talk to each other. And even if we plan like half an hour every week for doing that as a ritual, and it's not that 100% work related, in the end, on one hand, it's less time than it would be in the physical office. And on the other hand, again, it helps the bond of the team and the team spirit and makes us more productive. And I have one client. It is a sales organization, actually, so non-IT. And they started that, and it was a sales team full of women. So it was women only. And they started with introducing that virtual coffee kitchen, that virtual water cooler once a week. And now they ended by having virtual pajama parties, actually, and doing that really as a fun stuff for the whole team. And yeah, really enjoying that.
That's great. I mean, you just have to experience what fits the best for you and your company. But like, as I said, for them, there was the pajama party, whatever it is. Great, but this is a great story.
So right.
What you would think, like we talked as well already about how to build like those teams promote teams, but how you get to the shift for a traditional company that still is working like in old-fashioned way, so they can start to implement more and more step-by-step virtual teams or remote labor contracts, whatever, or arrangements for their employees, how they can get started and get the shift from traditional to virtual or remote?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So actually what I see first of all is what hinders actually companies and leaders doing that. And I think it's kind of that German angst, that fear of especially in German speaking language countries, where people fear like having a lack of control over the people. So I do not know if you work. What I answer, I cannot know if you work if you're sitting right next to me, because you have your screen, I have my screen, and I don't know what you're actually doing. And I saw many people in my professional career not really working when they were in the office. And I saw many people working like hell from home or from different locations. So it's not really a concrete and tangible fear. It's more like a feeling, the gut feeling people have. And I see, especially when it comes to that fear, people fear a lack of communication, and they fear a lack of knowledge exchange. And actually, this is more realistic, because I think if you're used to work in a physical office and you just send people working from home or hire people 100% remotely, and doesn't matter if they are remotely, and doesn't matter if they are employed or if these are freelancers, and you do not change how you act and how you work together, obviously you will have a lack of exchange and communication, because you have to behave differently. And another fear is obviously about team spirit, and this is the same thing. So you will lose team spirit if you do not change. And people working remotely, on the other hand, so the team members sometimes fear, is it a career killer if I'm not sitting in our global headquarters, but in working from home or sitting in any outpost office somewhere? Or can I get lonely because I lose the connect to my team? And do I get enough appreciation, for example, for my work? And what some people, and this is so sad to hear. What some companies and some people do is they identify those obstacles and challenges and say, okay, so we don't do it. But what I say is, let's find ways to get over that, because it are great chances. So I myself, there was a time I worked in a city and wanted to change my job to a job that purpose to do something which is meaningful for me. And there were several companies which are 100% cool, and I would love to work for them, but they were like 500 kilometers away. And I was not willing to move at that time for private reasons. And so I had no chance but to take a job which was okay-ish, but not my dream job. And on the other hand, if you are an employee, why not hiring people who are really willing to work for you, who are really sharing that purpose with you? And if they are not willing to move, or if those are freelancers, but they are highly engaged, why not considering that by getting over those obstacles? And what can you do? So I see two scenarios here. One scenario is, if you have a company, most of the time the company is already working with distributed teams, because the challenges and the mechanisms of virtual teams occur even if you have several floors in the same building. So it's the same story. You do not see all of the time. You do not get all those little context and tiny information which is in your office room. So you have a distributed team when you have several floors, or even if you have one long floor. I have one client, it's 80 people on one very long floor, and they have a distributed team already. And it's not that much difference when it comes to other countries or other offices. Of course, there are some cultural differences which come along, and some more use of technology which comes along, but the deeper insight challenges are pretty much the same. So, and for those clients or scenarios, I suggest to focus on that social emotional part of that. So to think about, for example, a team charter, which is a wonderful thing for existing teams and even teams working together remotely for 10 years. And I have clients doing that. And when I ask them, for example, what would be for you an appropriate time for answering an internal email, if you still send emails, what is an appropriate time to answer? And they should write it down on the card and show the cards to everyone. And it's like one person says 1 hour, and the next one says 8 hours, and the next one says a week. And they're disappointing each other all of the time because they never talked about that. And when you do a team charter, you can clarify those simple questions. And how do we want to work together? How want we to communicate? What tools do we use? What is our working style? So it's not that much about processes, but general expectations in each other. And this is for scenario one, a wonderful idea to do. So where you have an existing distributed team. And if you plan to hire people remotely, can be freelancers or employees, 100% or 80% working from home. What you should do is, first of all, to talk with the people about or try to find out about their motivation, try out on shared values, and to try to find out their working style and their characteristics. For example, if someone is highly extroverted, I would not recommend doing a 100% work from home job. 100% work from home job, because people will feel lonely if they are too much extroverted. And what you can do is by selecting the team members to find strong communicators, people being open to transparency, sharing their knowledge proactively, and to look at this. Having a great diversity in your team is important, because diversity brings new ideas, and especially when it comes to a remote team where you have a little bit less conversation and less exchange, diversity helps to have the conversation rolling and going on. And when you start a project, you should desperately focus on try to meet at least one time at the beginning of the project. And even if it is an international project, in most of the times, the flight costs and travel costs are more than good invested in time you save, because of the bond of the team and the cohesion of the team and people teamed up. And if your budget allows it, you should redo that exercise, for example, every 6 months. So depending on what you do and how big your team is. And in the meantime, have as many video-enabled conversations as you can. So this is also in Western Europe sometimes a topic. Should I activate my webcam? And even in North America, where I do some of my projects, depending on the company culture, some people do not feel very comfortable by activating the webcam. And you cannot force anybody to do this. But if you start doing that, after 2 or 3 web meetings, you will see it's like normal. It's no big business. And you see all that advantages and how you get more relationship and connecting better to each other. Really recommend every virtual team.
I was just listening to another podcast a few days before, and they were talking exactly about that. How important it is, even in virtual teams, to have like this visual connection with your coworkers, and especially for your nervous system and how you react with people. It's like it works even over webcam, but you have to have activated. If you don't see each other for never, so you don't have like activation of your sympathetic nervous system. So this is like really important stuff, and it works even virtually.
Absolutely.
So, science is proved. So this works. I
think, in fact, on the other hand, sometimes people try to tell me, this is for young people and for young professionals doing all that web meetings with video and whatever. So you're used to do that. And on the other hand, I see when it comes to some of young professionals, they rely sometimes too much on new ways of communication. So, for example, I work sometimes with teams, especially in IT, where Slack or HipChat or any group chat is used a little bit too much. I do not mean having too much notifications. I mean people stop talking synchronously, like audio, telephone, or video conferencing, and only use chat. So this is too much. So you need that direct communication, voice-enabled communication as well. So of course, there are many good reasons to use a team chat, but to rely too much on it can even increase the distance between people.
Yeah, because I think I heard that in some other contexts, you need to be like a real expert in the right place to get like this personal notion, like the voice over and like you feel how you're feeling in this moment, and how to transfer this information and feeling for yourself to your coworker or the person that you talk right now.
Yeah, so right. And you just mentioned those studies. And back in the time when we were cavemen, and actually we are not far from that today, we hadn't the chance to communicate with anybody we do not see. So telephone is not really old for human ways. So it's a new invention to talk over distance. And it's great that we have video enabled. And people also are not used to text, because Gutenberg is pretty new for the humankind, for mankind, because most of the time when we were cavemen and developed to what we are today, we hadn't had the chance for any text communication. And this is why it's so hard for us to transport feelings. And you mentioned those emojis, for example. And sometimes I myself see an email and think, oh, why does she write me such an email and that tone? How could she? And when I talk to that lady afterwards and try to solve that, I find out that she meant completely different things. And I just was interpreting. And we are so fast in interpreting any text communication, which is really a bad habit, but hard to let go, because most of the time we are wrong. Only if you are a team of professional book authors and writers, maybe they can exchange feelings very good in team chat or in emails, but most of us can't. Or in emails, but most of us can't. So I would suggest never interpret any bad intention into text communication. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. This is interesting. I would have another question for you about virtual teams. There are like different categories of virtual teams. You have like this completely remote and distributed teams that like you mentioned in the beginning, like Automatic or WordPress in particular. Then you have like the traditional old-fashioned company that is completely not remote and on one place. And then you have like this rare special combination with hybrid teams, which I found, and we have that on FlashUp and Bright Solutions. We have like a hybrid team, like some of those people are based in Germany, in Darmstadt, some of them are in Hamburg. And then we have like some of those people are based in Germany, in Darmstadt, some of them are in Hamburg. And then we have like this huge virtual team. So to get this hybrid teams working is like I find it the most difficult way, because you have like on one side this physical office where people met, and then you have like the external workers that are around the globe and different cultures and whatever. So how you blend those teams that are virtual and not virtual?
Yeah. You're so right. This is an excellent question, because this is one of the biggest challenges. So you're so right. So this is something which was called distribution asymmetry by a scientist called Karen Sobolodjeski. And she, with her colleague Richard O'Reilly, they made many studies 10 years ago about the topic of distance. And this is one. And it's again with those cavemen. When we are sitting together in one room, we will have those unintended conversations, and there are so many important information going on between us, and we are exchanging. And most of the time, we won't write like meeting minutes of our 2-minute spontaneous conversation to let anybody around the world from the team know, because they are not there and they are not in our minds. They are not really present in that situation. We are not aware of that. And it's easier to say that than doing that, is to make it a habit, to really make it a habit to write as many micro meeting minutes as you can. So if you're working in a hybrid team and you are sitting together with some colleagues co-located in your room or in your location, and you're not writing 2 or 3 micro meeting minutes in your team chat or as an every day, you're doing something wrong. It's not enough. So it's really about making that a habit. It gets a little more easier when it comes to web meetings and video meetings. I see sometimes, even today, that there are teams sitting in that big conference room and there are sitting 8 people and 2 remote people are dialed in. And in that big conference room, they had that conference phone. And what happens then is like a nightmare if you are dialed in, because what happens is there are side talks, people are whispering, or there is that really engaged discussion, and you have an idea, but you cannot get through. So you do not hear everything, you cannot state your ideas, because that discussion is so vivid that you have no chance. And this is there are 2 fantastic ways what you can do. One way is, it's like a rule, it's the rule. If one person is remote, act as if everyone is remote, which means everyone dials in individually from their own computer with their own webcam. So it's like equalized for everyone because everyone is dialed in and there's no conference room and no conference phone. In some office locations, this is hard to achieve, especially when you have open floor, open plan offices. And the other thing I really like is having something which is called a buddy, which means I dialed in remotely and I have one, it's like my lawyer, it's like my representative in that room, and he or she helps me. So whenever there's whispering, that person will say, okay, wait, Florian cannot hear that. He's dialed in. If there's a vivid discussion, he will say, stop. Let's hear Florian's opinion. And for each and every dialed in person, there should be one of those buddies, and this role obviously can rotate. And this helps a lot. But the more challenging thing is really about thinking of those distant people. And there were experiments actually, so really practical experiments, for example, connecting 2 rooms. So if you have 5 developers in location A and 5 developers in location B, what some teams try to do is have a video conference open for the entire day. So you see the different office, it's like looking through a window. And this is pretty good for video, but it's not that good, obviously, for audio, because most of the time you have one conference phone connected to that. And obviously in the room, for example, with developers, you have whispering when they are at one desk, and you really do not understand everything. And I hope that technology will improve some steps that we can connect 2 or several rooms better when it comes to audio.
Let's hope for that. I think I saw something just recently like that. You have like a 360 webcam and with different microphones. So if you're sitting in a room, so that the camera is capturing always the person that is speaking right now, and you're getting like insight, like it's the same as a one-to-one talk, and especially for people that are distributed and catching in with on a offline conference or meeting, that is really helpful.
Yeah, that's right. There are those systems, but most of the time they are not perfect when it's outside a meeting room. So when you're really sitting on your desk working, and you want to have that same feeling that you hear, like what's going on, what does Peter do right now, what is he working on, who's he phoning with? So all that little background noise you will ignore unconsciously, but it's somehow important to get along with all those contacts. But yes, could be a solution going in that direction.
Nice. What do you think by yourself? What percentage of workforce will be like remote, organized in 5 or 10 years?
I'm not good in spinning the wheel of fortune. So I can say what I see right now. What I see right now is in all of the major client locations all over the place. So especially in Western Hemisphere, I see that we have more and more demand, especially when it comes to IT people. There are more and more projects and opportunities, but we cannot clone our developers and data scientists and IT guys. So there's absolutely a need, and people and companies are forced to do something. So this is a strong reason I see right now. And when I see, for example, in Germany especially, how few people dare to work from home. In some industries, you cannot imagine that, but when you're really not seeing only the digital economy, but really every company they're really struggling trying that, but also they are forced to do that. And there are more and more jobs you can do remotely, even jobs you wouldn't think about you can do in remote. Favorite examples is in San Francisco, in Bay Area, the rents for a flat are so high that if you have a job like on the counter where you at a fast food restaurant where you get the orders, it's so expensive to live there that if you have only that job to take the orders at that fast food restaurant, you cannot live there. So what they do is people are sitting in Nevada actually, and they are connected remotely to that drive-through counter and taking your order and giving that to the people, of course, who have to be there, who make your meal. But wow, these are things 10 years ago, no one would think about doing that, right? So and I think we'll see that more and more. And what I really love is I see that more and more teams and also traditional and innovative companies give it a try with those virtual teams. And most of the time, it needs only one project to prove that you do not lose control and that you can have even a higher productivity in a virtual team because you're communicating, are more aware of what you communicate and be more aware of the context of the people and how you work together, are more structured. And you can even outperform co-located teams, which are distributed over several floors in the same building. And I see more and more companies daring that, seeing that, and I think it's like a spread of word. And this is what I hope for, and this is what I believe in for the future.
What a good closing. Let's stop it there. It was a really nice talk with you about the virtual teams and how you can organize them. Florian, do you have like for the virtual teams and how you can organize them? Florian, do you have like for audience any recommendation what they should read right now, what they should see, and for at last maybe a way how they can connect with you if they're interested to know more about the tactics and getting strategy behind organizing virtual team and getting to know more about this new kind of leadership and new styles of leadership that are so much in need?
Yeah, I just can recommend to read everything I publish. No, just kidding. Actually, right now I'm publishing pretty much in German. So I have to admit that even my website is still only in German, which has a good reason actually. Because I have no time for updating that in English, but maybe later. So give it a try. It's on www.newwork.me. It's newwork.me, and it's obviously planned to have this in English because I also do projects, international projects, obviously in English. But yeah, with my website, I have to improve that. So sorry for that. And I'm happy to connect to everybody who wants to share a story or wants to hear some insights and stories. I'm happy to share my knowledge. So let's get in touch.
Thank you very much. Nice to talk to you, Florian.
Thank you for having me.
I'd like to thank our guest, Florian Michalik, for joining us today. You can find out more about Florian and Team of Talents on their website that is linked in the show notes. You can subscribe to The Virtual Frontier or leave us a review at Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Visit flashhub.io. On behalf of the team here at FlashHub, I'd like to thank you for listening. So until next episode, keep exploring new frontiers.